Historic records prove the secret intensification of the biological weapons race in America make the Soviet efforts pale by comparison. Here to prove it are three of the most stunning and condemning documents in biological warfare history. First is a never declassified congressional record of 1969 showing the Department of Defense requested $10 million to develop, quote, synthetic biological agents for germ warfare, end quote, through the National Academy of Sciences, National Research Council, that is, the NAS-NRC. That's nearly half of the amount of money given to all of biological weaponry that year. These new laboratory creations were descriptively and functionally identical to HIV/AIDS. Mind you, this was 15 years before the contested discovery of the AIDS virus by this man, Dr. Robert Gallo, who, as you will see in a minute, oversaw Litton Bionetics, the Army's sixth leading biological weapons contractor at that time. Bionetics also operated the entire administration of the National Cancer Institute's programs at Fort Detrick at that time as well. This private company was a medical subsidiary of the mega military weapons contractor called Litton Industries. Litton's president, Roy Ashe, was Nixon's alternate for the National Security Advisor post he gave to Kissinger. In consolation, the president made Ashe his White House chief of American business and industry. As Roy Ashe was joining the Nixon White House staff, Kissinger ordered Admiral Zumwalt of the Navy to do a reassessment of America's biological weapons capabilities. The Navy has always been at the forefront of such things. Bioweapons were cheaper to make and could be made to target certain people, even certain ethnic groups. There is no doubt that Fort Detrick's sudden cancer focus was part of a greater depopulation plan. According to congressional records and his biographer, Time magazine's managing editor, Walter Isaacson, Kissinger selected the option presented by Admiral Zumwalt to develop AIDS-like and Ebola-like bioweapons, and the contract went to his White House colleague's company, Litton Bionetics. Kissinger selected the option presented by Admiral Zumwalt to develop AIDS-like and Ebola-like bioweapons, and the contract went to his White House colleague's company, Litton Bionetics. There is now no doubt that Dr. Gallo officiated the development of these AIDS complex viruses. His group at Bionetics combined leukemia, lymphoma, and sarcoma viruses from various species of animals nearly 15 years before he was credited by the Department of Health and Human Services for having discovered the cause of AIDS, a similar retrovirus. They said this would lead to a cure, an AIDS vaccine within 3 years. It never happened. I managed to catch up to Dr. Gallo at the 11th International Conference on AIDS in Vancouver in 1997. I asked him if he was concerned that some of his experiments might have given rise to the AIDS virus or AIDS virus relatives that might have contaminated monkeys and chimpanzees shipped by Litton to the Merck's vaccine division in New York for the production of the earliest hepatitis B vaccines. These documents, including the U.S. government contracts, best explain how AIDS emerged on two far-removed continents in black Africans and gay New Yorkers by 1978. These were precisely the populations that received the first hepatitis B vaccines produced in Litton's chimpanzees just 4 years earlier. By the way, the man sitting to Dr. Robert Gallo's right is Dr. Jonathan Mann. At the time, Dr. Mann was the AIDS czar for the World Health Organization. Not long after Dr. Mann witnessed my exchange with Gallo, he quit his most esteemed position, saying, quote, far more than a medical problem, AIDS is a socio-political imposition, end quote.
clips over very easily on that podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Payman. And thank all of you for coming out today. A cult. Medicine is a cult. And I tell you that as a Harvard Behavioral Science Masters in Public Health recipient. Behavioral science, media, persuasion, technologies, research. I'm an expert being very persuasive. Be careful. But I can tell you as a behavioral scientist from Harvard that there's only one difference between modern medical professionals and any other cult in the world. The difference is this. Most cult followers know who their leaders are. In modern medicine, most brainwashed, mind-controlled slaves in healthcare have virtually no clue that they're serving fundamentally the Rockefeller family. So let me go on. Ultimately, in the book Emerging Viruses, I deliver some hard, cold, stunning documentation. What was done, and Payman asked me to just go over this, in order to create these new designer diseases, diseases that have a capacity to only trigger certain disease predispositions in even certain races. You think it's an accident today. As of 2 years ago, 73% of HIV/AIDS cases in the United States are black and Hispanic. You think that's an accident? Same accident that 25% of black women in the United States are sterile. Same accident that 35% of Native American women are sterile today. How do you think they got sterile? And then to get what they called a mutant hybrid, which is right in front of the chicken's bill right there, chicken's face, that's a mutant hybrid of the recombinant of the two. To get it to jump species into humans, they cultured it in human white blood cells in some studies and human fetal tissue cells in culture in other studies. So that's essentially the crude laboratory work that they were doing way back in the 60s, 1960s and early 70s. And of course, who were these people that Gallo worked with to do this work? Was none other than Bionetics Research Labs. Here you see them 6th on the list of major Army biological weapons contracting firms. This is directly from the United States Congressional Record. Well, I could go on and talk more about different things. I could talk about the genocide that's going on in Africa today that relates directly to this type of documentation. Here you have from the National Cancer Institute's monograph the fact that you have the heart of the African AIDS belt. This is long before AIDS broke out. This is 1974 document where you're seeing work in the early 70s in particularly the areas that we're seeing now, the herpes-type viruses, that includes Epstein-Barr, simian cytomegalo. These are cofactors for immune suppression and cancer. And then hepatitis B. Hepatitis B vaccination. In fact, it was the 1974 experimental hepatitis B vaccine that was given to gay men in New York City and blacks in Central Africa, that according to all the epidemiological evidence, the science, including the DNA sequencing of the full viral genome. You've heard reports that their viruses were a long time ago, centuries ago, AIDS virus evolved. Well, portions of it did. But the full gene sequence you find that came out in the mid-70s, and that it all relates to this particular vaccine produced by the Merck Pharmaceutical Company, whose man, Dr. Maurice Hilleman, we have actually on the tape called Horowitz on Vaccines, telling you that he brought the AIDS virus into North America in contaminated monkeys, destined for vaccine research and development at the Merck Pharmaceutical Company. So the heart of the African AIDS belt, right there where you see those stars and the square, was where they were testing these vaccines. This is northwest Uganda region of Central Africa, and of course also in New York City you see a square that relates to the same fact that they were using gay men there in 1974 and 75 to produce what now amounts to global genocide. This is what you're looking at that made people wake up who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Right there, perfect. You're looking at the United States government contract under which numerous AIDS-like and Ebola-like viruses were bioengineered by the Army's 6 top biological weapons contracting lab, Bionetics. You see, the title of the investigation was called Investigations of Viral Carcinogenesis in Primates. That's cancer production through viral infections in monkeys and humans. And there you see the name Dr. Robert Gallo. as the project officer for the National Cancer Institute, and you see that the date that the contract was initiated was February 12, 1962. 62. This is what you're looking at that made people wake up who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Right there, perfect. You're looking at the United States government contract under which numerous AIDS-like and Ebola-like viruses were bioengineered by the Army's 6 top biological weapons contracting lab, Bionetics. You see, the title of the investigation was called Investigations of Viral Carcinogenesis in Primates. That's cancer production through viral infections in monkeys and humans. And there you see the name Dr. Robert Gallo as the project officer for the National Cancer Institute, and you see that the date that the contract was initiated was February 12, 1962. 62. What we now show you is going on in healthcare in America and virtually the world is what is militarily classified as, quote, non-lethal military warfare, end quote. What's that? Why, the think tanks of Rockefeller and Friends, and I'm talking about the Committee of 300 and the Royal Institute for International Affairs, Stanford Research Institute, and a number of other think tanks like Tavistock, came up with the fact that in order to control populations in a new world order, where you want to kind of like put away the really destructive weapons, because if you blow up like a nuclear weapon, it's costly to the infrastructure. The bankers own it anyway, so why destroy it? It's better to just basically kill people off silently and untraceably with biologicals and chemicals. And so today what you're looking at is an economic substitute. That's their language. A, quote, economic substitute, end quote, for standard militarization using the, quote, Russian biological warfare method, end quote. And I suppose it's called the Russian biological warfare cocktail method because the Americans likely invented it, wherein you expose targeted populations to combinations of biological and chemical weapons simultaneously or within some period of time close to one another. So the chemicals wreak havoc with the immune system, leaving people more susceptible to opportunistic infections. Then the biologicals come in and then totally wreak additional havoc. Plus, they've got the new designer microbes, such as the mycoplasma agent, that buries deep into the cells. It's very difficult to diagnose, even harder to treat. Standard antibiotics can't touch it. Can't get rid of it for, more than a couple weeks. And then, ultimately, that leaves this person sick chronically, ill, dependent then, virtually enslaved to a pharmaceutical complex. They become drug addicts. And that really is what the think tanks came up with as saying, this is the way that modern warfare will be enacted in the 21st century. You have now enslaved a population, a culture, a nation to the pharmaceutical industrialists. And isn't this exactly what we're seeing in the headlines today regarding the pharmaceutical supplies to the country of Africa?
Is it possible that they withhold very important facts and information?
90% of media is government and CIA controlled. They withheld from the beginning, you know why? They thought it worked only in homosexual and in black people, because it was also in Central Africa and Haiti, and they did not know that suddenly explode.
So they're lying to us, is that it, huh?
They lied to us from the beginning.
I am Dr. Alan Cantwell, Jr., a physician and researcher in the field of cancer and AIDS microbiology. I have written 3 books on cancer and AIDS, the most recent one concerning the origin of the AIDS epidemic. Is AIDS in reality a man-made disease? Is the AIDS virus a genetically engineered cancer virus that was created in a laboratory? Was the AIDS virus injected into African blacks and into American homosexuals in a diabolic experiment? Are we all now part of an experiment sacrificed on the altar of medical science? I answered all these questions in my book, AIDS and the Doctors of Death. But there is only one man who can give us the full information about the true origin of this new disease called AIDS. Was it Professor Dr. Wolf Schmunis, the physician-scientist who injected gays in an experiment in the New York City Blood Center in the fall of 1978? This you must judge for yourself. After these interviews, Dr. Wolf Schmunis has decided to reveal his full identity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me a very courageous man, Dr. Wolf Schmunis, the man who created AIDS.
Yeah. That was a little bit emotional. I agree. I'm Polish and I'm Jewish. Yeah. But I also understand emotion leads us nowhere here. Because that is what they want you to be, emotional, upset, blaming this and that here and there so that you don't find the truth. What really happened? This is what I'm here for today, to explain to you what really happened. And then you make up your own mind. You will decide by yourself. Is this all science fiction or just utopia or some nutty theory? Or could it be? Well, what I am saying here must be understandable to a 10-year-old and to a professor of atom physics the same. If something is the truth, it is simple. The truth about AIDS is simple. They just want to make it complicated for you so that you, after a while, you get so good, I don't know, there's this theory, that, and virus, bacteria, and man-made, and so on, and you just say, I have enough. You know, we call that conspiracy tired. You don't have to have sex to have AIDS. Just you remember in the tunnels of the air condition in Philadelphia, there was a virus brooding and growing and replicating. And when they put on the air condition, the water droplets put it out, and all legionnaires that met in this hotel became legionnaire disease. The AIDS virus can survive everywhere. Believe me, it's strong. Doesn't need any more contact now, and this is all I've explained to you. But the facts, without emotion, just explained. Okay, what do I say? Professor Dr. Wolf Schmunis, Columbia University, School for Public Health. Yes, Professor. If you hear the story, in a couple of years. What are my credentials? Yeah, now I understand they needed an idiot for their conspiracy, for their experiment. Chief Epidemiology, New York, Blood Center. I was in seventh heaven. Oh my God, my life's dream was fulfilled. But now I've wake up from that dream to reality. See what I mean? And the reality is this, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could present something more positive, but this is the fact. AIDS is A, man-made disease. B, created in laboratory, gene splice. And also injected then into gays and blacks. Which gays? Which blacks? The gays and blacks from my experimental trials. I injected 1,083 homosexuals against hepatitis B. Today they are all dead. They died of AIDS. And if they are not dead, they have HIV positive. Yes. I vaccinated against smallpox in Africa. Today, millions of people in Africa have AIDS, HTLV1. Yeah, ha! there is a word. And the reality is this, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could present something more positive, but this is the fact. AIDS is A man-made disease. B, created in laboratory, gene splice. And also injected then into gays and blacks. Which gays? Which blacks? The gays and blacks from my experimental trials. I injected 1,083 homosexuals against hepatitis B. Today they are all dead. They died of AIDS. And if they are not dead, they have HIV positive. Yes. I vaccinated against smallpox in Africa. Today, millions of people in Africa have AIDS, HTLV1. Yeah, ha! There is a word. AIDS-related disease and AIDS. These are two different things, but they come from the same source. And that source is WHO, CDC, people like Gallo. This is what I say. These people knew from the beginning that AIDS is a man-made disease, that this is an animal virus. Sorry. It was suggested the possibility should be looked into. You know how they use the nice words? But what did they say in effect? I am not the one who says this only. I have the books here of other world-renowned doctors who say what the WHO mainly suggested was, let's create AIDS. Let's do it. Yeah. And let's find a human experiment where we can see how does this work. So this is the scene in which I come in. And this is where you see, they did not have a trial and nobody would touch this. And here I come from Poland and suggest to inject 1,083 homosexuals. It was suggested the possibility should be looked into. You know how they use the nice words? But what did they say in effect? I am not the one who says this only. I have the books here of other world-renowned doctors who say what the WHO mainly suggested was, let's create AIDS. Let's do it. Yeah. And let's find a human experiment where we can see how does this work. So this is the scene in which I come in. And this is where you see, they did not have a trial and nobody would touch this. And here I come from Poland and suggest to inject 1,083 homosexuals. Those who rule you created the disease and they knew it from the beginning that it was their cancer experiment because AIDS is a cancer experiment. But okay, and I only come here and defend myself because I read in all these books that I was a KGB agent, you know, a double agent. No. CIA, KGB. I was happy that I was out of Poland. No. But I don't, I know, getting a little bit emotional. So, I suggested, gentlemen, and don't forget, I began in the blood center, New York Blood Center, as laboratory technician. I was sweeping the floor and making coffee. 2 years later, I was chef, and so I had my own laboratory and millions of dollars of government funding. All because of one idea. I said, let us inject homosexuals against hepatitis B, the vaccine. Wasn't even there, the vaccine. Maurice Hilleman was working. It took no time. They sit together there, CIA, FBI, NCI. I'm not telling you thriller here for entertainment. So I suggested to vaccinate homosexuals. And everybody was open, said yes. Funding, everything. Begin with it. Oh, I mean, I was just in seventh heaven, you know. And I said, Maya, I said to my wife, this is like lottery. We win the lottery. Guess what they said? I can do it. So I began to screen 13,000 homosexuals. for the hepatitis B vaccine trial. As a human being, you must see one thing, you must pump this in your head. The frustration of science is to not be able to have a human experimental trial, human beings in which you can experiment. They did it under Hitler, they did it under this and that, but you know, this is all without consent. There is a fear factor in it. You know what they did, I don't have to explain you here the horrors. They even did it because some people, and it has to do with AIDS, say, oh, but how would the government do something like this? I show you a book, I don't have here now, but I give you title. Paxman and Harris is on the tape. A higher form of killing, where under the CIA supervision, the government did hundreds of attacks of the people of the United States on their own people. In San Francisco, I was in 70 or something, they sprayed from a Navy vessel, bacteria. Every San Franciscan got 5,000 units. This is all recorded. What is with Tuskegee, Alabama? To the black race. They had people with syphilis, they didn't give them penicillin. Poor sharecroppers, 600 or so. They let them die. Why? They wanted to see what happened to you when you have syphilis but no penicillin. What is syphilis, friends? Wake up. Syphilis is cancer, right? It leads to cancer. This was a cancer experiment. In New York, in the Bronx, the 2 Jewish doctors, ashamed for the Jewish race, they injected 22 people with alive cancer cells. Yeah, they got a year on probation and so, you know. Everybody asked, why do they inject live cancer cells? Are they nuts or are they sort of mentally? No, they are very clear. It is a human cancer experiment. And so nowadays there are many scientists that say 80% of cancer is created by the contamination from these cells in the laboratories. 80% from the cancer in the world comes from the laboratories. Polio vaccinations also and others. And from the contamination with Henrietta Lacks cells and others. So I continue to inject homosexuals with the hepatitis B virus. What I did not know then was that whenever they got a shot, they got HIV virus also. Because now they are all dead, most of them. And those who are not dead, they are HIV positive. So I continue to inject homosexuals with the hepatitis B virus. What I did not know then was that whenever they got a shot, they got HIV virus also. Because now they are all dead, most of them. And those who are not dead, they are HIV positive. Tell them to go in the blood bank in New York to allow you to look into the vials of the gay men from my trial. You will find HIV, 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 HIV. That is no coincidence. Vaccination is scientific fraud and creates the disease against which you are vaccinated. This is why all the diseases come back now. And I say it again and again, and no matter, cannot be said often enough, and it is painful. For me as a scientist, believe me, my life's work is vaccination. Against hepatitis B, against smallpox in Africa. A vaccination is useless. Want me to write that for you, all professors, you all eggheads, big shots, frauds, conspirators. Vaccination is useless, was useless, and will be useless, and vaccination creates actually the disease that you have been vaccinated against. Wait and see. You don't have to wait so much. All of you who have brain cancer and other stuff is mostly related to vaccination anyway. Every honest scientist. When I looked under the microscope, first time, I saw this. Show it, please, because it is a shame It is a disgrace to WHO, NCI, NIH, George Bush, Ronald Reagan, Nixon, the whole perverted crew. They knew and know about this. This is the virus that I found in the people of my trial. And it hit me. I said, wait a minute. What is this virus doing there? I didn't put it in. How do they come to a... This virus does not appear in nature. You could say, oh, this is a man-made virus. The moment you see this, you see a combination of sheep and cattle. This is the AIDS virus. Almost, I say, I proudly present. No. Everybody who has AIDS, per definition, I know they say AIDS is not created by HIV, and so it's true. There are AIDS-like symptoms that are not caused by HIV virus, correct. Kaposi sarcoma is 100 years old. That doesn't mean that you have AIDS when you have Kaposi. No, I don't say that. But this virus, when you have this virus, you have AIDS. This is animal virus, combined human tissue culture, out comes this. This is a cancer virus. Pump it in your head. Cancer means whoever has this virus. See, you remember the dream of Dr. Philip Cole? Somebody is healthy, gets cancer, and then he dies. But this is what it is. When you are AIDS, you were first healthy, correct? Remember that I chose the healthy ones? And then I injected them. I didn't know that this virus was in the placebo and in the vaccine. Now, I saw only one man first. I thought, well, I was not the only one who did experiment with animal virus in human tissue culture. AIDS is an animal virus trained and and exercised in human tissue culture. Is a killer virus machine. Other professors did too, but isn't it strange that appeared first in my trial? Question must be allowed. Of course, they said not only do we have the one who is conducting the trial, we have the one who even is the master in doing the virus. Let's get them together and give him money. He is happy that something that is, I have to say this because who is involved, isn't that? The disaster in Africa with AIDS and HTLV1 was this. It was cow virus. The vaccine was already contaminated. Where do you make the smallpox vaccine? What do you make it from? From cow. Right? Put the cow into the stanchion here, the cow. That is a cow. Don't know how I come to that idea, but it is a cow. So you put it into stanchion, shape open, slice open the belly a little bit, put vaccine on it, cowpox. Wait a week, put the scabs off in a steelless container, dry out, and that is your cowpox vaccine. Your smallpox vaccine, sorry. Your smallpox vaccine. Contaminated cow. I discovered that they had pumped into the cow sometimes the AIDS virus. So that in that moment when you make the vaccine from it, the vaccine contains automatically AIDS. I found out that they put in the cow virus the same virus. They say everybody, well, that is from cow, doesn't hurt or so. Yeah, but this was already gone through human tissue culture. They had injected it again. They had injected the cows with whom we make the smallpox vaccine. Understand? They gave AIDS to the cows. The cow wouldn't get sick from AIDS. Doesn't get sick. You understand that? The cow doesn't get AIDS. The monkey doesn't get AIDS. This is why not come from monkey. But if you inject AIDS in cow, it doesn't have nothing happen. But if you make vaccine from it and you have the blood, you have this AIDS virus passes through the cow without harm and is then indeed in the vaccine. And then when you get it, oh. What should I do? I knew more and more what had happened. They had taken my hepatitis B vaccine trial and my smallpox vaccination in Africa and had put in the AIDS virus there. Jimmy Carter said once to me, "You own Africa." And I was, I was in charge, more or less, of the health of Africa. I had great plans. Kangwane. Hepatitis B, I wanted to inject children against hepatitis B. I spoke 1 hour to the president. And I was crying. I was sometimes choked. He did not interrupt much, but then after that hour he said, "Dr. Schmones, you talk to nobody about this. This is top secret. I am your first in command anyway, because you are part of even head of the biowarfare program. So, nobody, not your wife, nobody. You wait, I will get back to you. Let me think about this." And I was like I was breaking down. I said, "Thank you, Mr. President, thank you, thank you." I was like crying like a little child. "Thank you, I swear you, I didn't do it. I don't know why, I'm innocent." I mean, I was laying in my bed like a little fetus embryo, talking to the President of the United States, like somebody who at any moment gets something on his back, or some punishment. And he said, calm me down. He said, "I know. You think you would tell me otherwise, but I almost wanted him to say that it's my fault. I don't know why. I wanted to have some accusation, but it's like talking in the emptiness, you know." I said, "But something must happen." And he said, "AIDS is made from sheep and cattle. Man-made disease. When Dr. Robert Gallo was attacked on stage, by somebody who had AIDS, because they say to him, 'You created AIDS. You knew about this, Dr. Gallo,' and so forth. The guy who claims to have invented who found the AIDS virus. Montagnier found it from France. Yeah. You know that story. He sent a picture to Gallo. "Hello, what is this here?" And Gallo makes press conference and say, "I found the AIDS virus." This is how they lie and steal and cheat. When Dr. Gallo was confronted with these facts, namely, a young student, I think, came and said, "Dr. Gallo, I heard about the fact that AIDS is made from sheep and cattle. I heard about the fact that AIDS is a man-made virus. I heard about the fact that this virus here, who comes out of that union, namely the AIDS virus, has a molecular weight of 160 GP for the glycoprotein. We know exactly what it is. 40 for the core, has enzyme reverse transcriptase. Oh God, I heard this is a man-made virus. What do you have to say, Dr. Robert Gallo, MD? And Gallo pinned to the, wrote a whole book about why I am wrong, so to speak. Yeah, won't help you much, Dr. Gallo, because millions are watching now. And millions will see now that you knew about the creation of the AIDS virus, and that you are also responsible, and that you are sharing with others the AIDS cancer experiment and the results. When somebody has, first of all, mammogram gives you breast cancer. A woman goes to mammogram, said first mammogram, breast cancer, oh, no breast cancer, wonderful. Next year she goes to mammogram, radiation, no breast cancer. After 5 years, she finds little tumor. And she says, thank God to the mammogram, because I found my cancer. But the truth is, dear lady, the mammogram gave you the cancer. After 5 years, you got it, finally, from the radiation. Wake up. When you have cancer and you get chemotherapy for a while, or radiation, for a while you feel better. You know why? It's the difference between bacteria and virus. You destroy the cancer bacteria here, and you feel really better. But what you don't know is what happened. The bacteria releases little virus, and they spread all over your body, and they want to sustain the progeny, and they become resistant. And when you get the next radiation, no way. They have spread, we call it metastasis and so forth. The cancer bacteria contains the virus. All I say is, there is a cure for AIDS, there is a cure for cancer, it already exists, people practice it already. When you need use electromagnetic vibration, don't radiate. All you have to do, you have to check out the special vibration of somebody that has AIDS, and then you radiate his blood or his body. Not every day. Royal Raymond Rife had problem with that, because suddenly the people got more sick. Why? They accumulate toxin. We do every 3 days. Wait until it can flush out. There are so many ways, but I tell you, to begin just working on the cure without drilling deeper and understanding the origin, the etiology of this virus, that makes no sense. You cannot cover up one and meekly start with the other. No. First, you have to come up with the truth, where AIDS comes from. Is this a man-made disease? That takes you to the next question, who did it? Goodbye.